Rogue is the best class, hands down, if you want to solo any piece of content. This would be a Tormented Boss. Now we're putting down Caltrops, face him, and blast away. That's like, you notice what's happening to the poor dude, right? Dash in, put more Caltrops down so he gets the damage multiplier going. Get him staggered with your Caltrops and your dazed. Get behind him and Dunzo. The faster you stagger him, the faster he dies. And the best part, I don't have any fancy gear. That bow doesn't have a single greater affix. Neither my weapons nor my rings are having attack speed greater affixes to really make this go super boom. And if you want to do Uber Lilith, no class does it easier. You essentially have to kill trap her, smoke bomb, and then just right click blast away. And notice her life bar just vanishing. The stupid like blood boils she summons are essentially just getting destroyed because Heartseeker exists. You kill trap her again, almost stagger her. The ads are getting obliterated. These waves you just dash through. And that's it, right? Like they can't even hit you. You don't want to, like poop. Yeah. It's sometimes it do be that stupid. Then you try to stagger her as fast as you can, because if you stagger her, you take insane damages. You dash through it. You don't even die. She gets staggered. She dies. Phase 2, done. And in phase 2, you're like super fast because, right? You're a rogue. You get all that movement speed on your side. Trying to run away from those firebolts, easy. Stand in the middle, make sure your Caltrops are there. Stand still for intercom to trigger. Get the stagger done like crazy. Go in, more stagger. Trying to stagger her in phase 1, but here, Caltrops down. She goes in, instantly gets staggered, and you're just blasting away. Now you kind of did break her, and now you have to just run away from these. And, well, I mean, Uber Lilith, huh? Couldn't be simpler. It goes away, make sure that your Dark Shrouds are popping for the damage reduction. Get hit by 1 orb, didn't even do anything to you, right? Get hit by 2 orbs, didn't even do anything to you. She's in the next phase, can dash those orbs, and do some damage to make her low. Make sure to not get hit, accidentally stagger her again. The stagger kind of aborts some of the fireball thingies, because now that fireball thing is gone, right? She destroys it, and we're done. We just absolutely soloed poor damn Uber Lilith. Without having the best gear in the world. And my favorite part is and stays just speed blasting through tier 100 dungeons. I have only 32,000 HP. Going in, grab our Caltrops, focus the dudes down, go very close proximity, smoke bomb, Caltrops again, destroy everything, dash forward, go into the next pack of mobs, right? Shadow step in, Caltrops, Daze bomb, shoot around the corner if you want to. You get stunned, you get in any way stopped. You have 3 skills to get out. You can dash, you can conceal, so you can't even be stopped. Freeze everyone with your lucky hits to freeze, or even your smoke bomb can freeze in that regard. Again, smoke bomb, Caltrops for the damage multipliers. And the closer you stand, the more heals you actually get. So if this dude is like having his fire thingy going on, don't even fear that. Just go close to him, give him the smoke bomb so he's kind of like dazed and doesn't hit you that hard or falls over when you actually knock him down. And then you just continue zooming through, right? I mean, like dive bomb everything. Don't worry, 50% dodge chance keeps you alive too when you're actually going inside of things. And yes, it can also dodge spells, so dodge chance is quite insane. Double Caltrops to get everyone Caltrop, crowd control, whatever. Almost get killed by the laser, doesn't matter. Dash out, put down the Caltrops again, dash in, get very close to the enemies. So, like, the reason to get close is also to have your arrows just not travel that much. Because the closer you are, the more DPS you deal, because you're simply inside of them, right? Your arrows don't have to travel. That actually does help a lot to just get more damage out. Now let's quickly jump forward to the boss, which is essentially like a few seconds away. But I want to show you the boss fight here in the pit 2. Now we're at the boss, as I said, a few seconds later, and the bosses are quite nice to find. You're gonna smoke bomb, Caltrops, And then you're going to make sure they're actually standing in the Caltrops. So like that wolf tends to go out. So dash in, Caltrops again. Make sure that you're standing right next to it. Get it staggered. And then you're essentially spending your time there right on the mob. And look, as soon as they're staggered, how much damage they're taking. He goes smoke out. So we're going to put ourselves here in a position where we can do Caltrops straight down. The multiple damage gain. Then we go in, Caltrops again. And we try to mostly move over dashing and not actually moving. Because if we don't move, then we can make sure that our inner calm, the bonus damage for standing still, just permanently triggers, right? And we win. That's it. Done with a tier 100. And it can go even faster. Let me break down the skills and then tell you what stats to exactly look out for to deal the most damage possible with Victimize, because I see a lot of you struggling to get the right amount of lucky hit, attack speed, vulnerable. What is it you actually need? Critical strike damage? No critical strike damage. That's what we're going to go down on. All the points in Heartseeker. With your Heartseeker pens and preferable Harlequin Crest, that you go actually up to 14, 15, 16 out of 5 Heartseeker points. With the Heartseeker ricocheting off, because that works extremely well throughout the dungeon. Then you have 3 points in Sturdy for the close damage reduction. If you can get more points in Siphoning Strikes on gear, that's nice, because critical strikes against close enemies have up to an 85% chance to heal you for 3% of your max life. And you're critical striking a lot with Heartseeker. You have an insane attack speed, so you're continuously just healing upwards. And before you ask, yes, you can play this from level 1 on all the way to 100. With 3 points in Ruck, you take less damage from damage over time effects, and then another 18% damage reduction while inflicted by control impairing effects, to really make sure that you're just not getting knocked out. Then we have the Caltrops, and the Caltrops together with the take 10% increased damage for you, increased by 5% each second up to 66%. That's one of your super damage stacks. It's crazy. Just make sure they're always standing in Caltrops, and you're essentially close to them so they don't walk out of Caltrops. Then you're getting another 10% critical strike if they're standing in Caltrops, because they're going to be vulnerable fire. Plus, if you're using a bow, you're getting 12% bonus damage versus vulnerable. And that's why you're also not using crossbows, because your critical strike damage increase is not worth it, because you're not critical striking. Yes, you are critting, but your Victimize is your main damage, and Victimize can critical strike. And bows just shoot faster, whereas crossbows have a slower attack speed. So crossbows only available if you really have all the greater affix attack speeds and can go crazy with that. 1 single point in dash and shadow stab, these can be saved if you're actually playing the Harlequin Crest, because you get the points anyways, and then you're getting more critical strike chance knocking back or knocking down an enemy, and if they're staggered, they're knocked back and knocked down, so that applies there as well. Plus, when you critical strike a dazed enemy, they're knocked down, and we're continuously dazing enemies as our smoke bomb actually dazes them, and then they're just going to fall on the ground and take way more critical strike damage, and anyways, all the damage was crowd controlled, stunned whatsoever. As we do use our cooldowns, we get another 12% dodge, and then with the Dark Shroud, we're getting more crit chance, but that provides us with huge amounts of damage reduction, and this is why you want all the points in Dark Shrouds possible. Currently I only have +3 ranks, I want +5 ranks, and then the Harlequin Crest pushing that up to 14, optimally 15 would be super good. Currently running Exploit with 9 ranks. I would prefer to actually have Malice, because that's damage to vulnerable, but hey, I got 6 bonus ranks in Exploit for the 54% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies. That's the first 20% and the last 35%. Doesn't hurt. Now you notice how I have 0 points in Concealment, but I play it, and that's because of the Harlequin Crest. If you do need 1 point more in there, you can yoink it out of Concussive, that you essentially have 1 point in Concealment and can actually use it. Plus, we're playing Frigate Finesse for the 15% increased damage to Chilled and 30% against Frozen. If a boss is staggered, he's frozen, and we're freezing over a lot of lucky hit components in the build. Lastly, down here, increased energy regeneration while moving, don't need that, but while at above 50% maximum energy, gain 15% movement speed. That's it. We're never below the energy, so we don't get the attack speed, only while leveling, but we get the bonus movement speed. And then last but not least, Victimize. Dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has up to a 50% to cause an explosion, dealing 375% of the original damage to them and surrounding enemies. And this gets increased by your vulnerable damage. Mine is currently 1500x, could be more. The interesting part here is it says of the original damage, which means if your Heartseeker actually critical strikes, the Victimize does do more damage as well. That's why we're going to go for critical strike chance with a lot of our skills here for the 8% bonus, for the 12% bonus, for the 10% bonus, and I think up here is even more critical strike. No, that was attack speed bonus, yes. But we don't go for critical strike damage, because we just want to crit to higher the Victimized damage then with a vulnerable multiplier, but we don't want to make sure that our crits are as high as possible. Which brings us to the gear and names the game vulnerable. We got this bow very early on with level 80 and I haven't swapped it out. Dex gives you all damage and dodge chance, maximum life to be around 30 to 40k. Then that damage should be rerolled into vulnerable damage and you need to temper vulnerable damage. That's where it gets extremely hard because tempering vulnerable damage is in the cutthroat finesse. Vulnerable damage, cutthroat attack speed, and critical strike chance. So it's a 1 out of 4 to actually roll this. And then on the other side, you need the basic augments, and that's a 1 out of 5 to get the Heartseeker projectiles to cast twice. And this is why attack speed is so important. Because the more attack speed we have, the more Heartseeker projectiles cast twice, the more Heartseeker has a chance to lucky hit, the more Victimize can trigger, the more damage we can do. Kind of simple, right? Makes sense. You can put this only on your bow, the Heartseeker projectiles, because with one single masterwork hit, you'll get this up to roughly 99%. I get this on my bow with an 84%, and then I just slammed it on one of my weapons to make sure that we just safe call have it done. I just want it on 100%. The aspect we're playing is Moonrise. Damaging an enemy with basic skills grants you bonus attack speed, that stacks up, and then you get 160% damage multiplier, and even more movement speed. Now, before you ask, how do you get things actually vulnerable? That is the aspect of the accursed touch, and I've been asked this a lot. So, up to a 34% chance for your skills to inflict vampiric curse, and if enemies are vampiric curse, they're vulnerable. And that's a lucky hit, and that always triggers. Now, there's a better thing to kind of do this that frees up this aspect slot, and that would be having a ring with the lucky hit up to a 24% chance to make enemies vulnerable, because that 24% due to the masterworking process also increases. That is not just a mere measly 24%, and it will always trigger. The problem is getting a good ring with that. That's why we're just playing Accursed Touch. And here we want vulnerable damage, dex, and max life. The same goes for my second weapon. Vulnerable damage, dex, and max life. Nothing special. No greater affixes, nothing. But we get the Caltrops duration here. And getting bonus time in Caltrops duration is so important because I'm at 11 seconds with it, and I'm only at 7 seconds without it. And if it's on 7 seconds, then every 7 seconds I need to renew my Caltrops to keep that super damage bonus up. Especially if you prolong the time. Right now, it only goes up to 45% multiplier. With the longer duration, it actually goes up to a 66% multiplier. So the longer it lasts, the more damage it can deal. And that's why you technically want on your second weapons Caltrops duration as well, instead of the Heartseeker cast twice, to have it scale even higher for more multipliers. The first aspect is Edgemaster. We do 20x multiplicative damage, just that. Our primary resource is full. Then the second one we played Accursed Touch. If you though have the ring with a vulnerable thing going on, then Accursed Touch is going to be just your basic skill has 30% bonus attack speed. Done. Most simple aspect ever. Highly recommend playing that one over Edgemaster if you don't have good attack speed yet. Your rings need a couple things. They need attack speed, they need vulnerable damage, and lucky hit chance. The vulnerable damage on the ring could also be critical strike chance. Not the attack speed, not the lucky hit, the vulnerable damage would be critical strike chance. Then you want bonus vulnerable damage tempering, and I currently have here the Shadow Stab cooldown reduction. I would rather have the Caltrops cooldown reduction as on the other item. And here again, you see I have Dex, attack speed, lucky hit chance. The Dex could simply be that vulnerable affix or critical strike chance. Now we are playing intercom on this one because we want to get the 30% bonus damage. And that's why you're moving with dashes and your shadow stabs, because you kind of don't want to move. Sure, you move forward with a skill, but then you're just going to stand still and get the 30% bonus damage again. And you more or less during the boss fight have it up all the time. Amulet is rocking the aspect of adaptability, which gives you 120% bonus damage when cast above 50% maximum resource on your basic skill. Basic skill does more damage, your Victimize does more damage. I got dodge chance tempered on this, which works really well, and vulnerable damage. Resistance to all elements and lucky hit chance. Technically, you want ranks to exploit, ranks to malice for the vulnerable damage, and then ranks to frigate finesse as well, because frigate finesse was that freeze damage. So a triple rank amulet would be great, but any three of them, either the exploit, the malice for the vulnerable, or the frigate finesse, if you have one of those three greater affix, that would already be fantastic. If you have all three non-greater affix, that would be a godlike amulet as well. The boots have damage aspect too. Everything does damage in the rogue, because we're running 20% increased damage to dazed enemies, and a lucky hit chance to dazed enemies, plus our smoke bomb actually dazes them. Bonus movement speed chance to immobilize. Yes, lucky hit, chance to immobilize. Lucky hit, chance to freeze. Lucky hit, chance to stun on your gear to stagger them to do more damage. Because if you're staggered, they're dazed, frozen, knocked down, everything. We get armor on the boots because I just needed that for the armor cap, and then even more movement speed and dexterity for more dodge chance. Which brings us to the pants, and the pants want to have ranks in Heartseeker. Bonus dodge chance here again for me, resistance to all elements that I get to my elemental cap, and maximum life, greater affix would be fantastic, and Heartseeker greater affix would be good, and then a lucky hit chance to freeze. With my favorite aspect, critical strikes, lucky hit critical strikes, with marksman skill is your Heartseeker, grant you Dark Shroud. So you don't have to play Dark Shroud anymore, you get Dark Shroud for free, you stack up your damage reduction by existing, lucky hitting, and critical striking, which you essentially do all the time. Your gloves want to have attack speed. Lucky hit chance, and crit chance. These gloves are horrible. The only good thing they have is 2 times masterworked attack speed, and that's about it. But the other stats are completely useless. Then temper vulnerable damage and up to a chance to freeze again. That gives me 2 chances to freeze now, freezes up to roughly a 50% lucky hit chance to actually freeze something. My chest has another lucky hit chance to slow in this case. And then you want ranks to Dark Shroud or ranks to Subterfuge skill, which is the same. Again, dexterity, max life, armor, whatever you kind of need. More dodge chance. This brings my dodge chance up to around and above 50%. Then enemies hit by your grenade skill have a chance equal to your critical strike chance to be frozen. More crit, more chance to freeze. That's why you also want critical strike chance, as you're getting anyways from all your skills, but some more doesn't hurt. And then you deal 25% increased critical strike damage against frozen or stunned enemies. Well, we do stun and we do freeze. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. Plus, we're actually having 2 dexterity gems in here to get even more all damage, but even more dodge chance as well. 200 dex is 2% dodge. Lastly, it's the Harlequin Crest, and it's amazing for the maximum life and the cooldown reduction and the bonus ranks. But you don't actually need the Harlequin Crest because there is an aspect that does equivalently well, if not even better. Because we're getting 20% damage reduction here, correct? But the defensive aspect we could be getting is the Enshrouding. Gain a free Dark Shroud every 3 seconds, cool. When standing still, that's what we do. Each Dark Shroud shadow grants another 4% damage reduction, which means 5 Dark Shrouds, another 20% damage reduction. That's fantastic. I mean, take me. That is the easiest. You can essentially get bonus damage reduction, and on your helmet, you can then do more utility tempers for lucky hit, chance to daze, lucky hit, chance to freeze. So all of them can happen, and we can get more life, total armor, dodge chance if needed. Alternative, there's also ranks into Siphoning Strikes, which would allow you to heal more, because that was the heal from close enemies as you critical strike lucky hit. Options, not even bad options. The Paragon Board makes you stronger than ever. We begin with the Marksman glyph. For every 5 dex purchased, we do more damage with our Marksman skills. Doesn't matter, we essentially just go through very easy. While wielding a ranged weapon, you take 10% reduced damage. Nice bonus damage reduction. Then we're going upwards into the board for Exploit Weakness. Whenever you deal damage to a vulnerable enemy, they take more damage. That's it, up to 25%, done. Plus, we're anyways getting then damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. And everyone is always vulnerable. We have the chip for bonus physical damage, and then physical damage increases the damage an enemy takes by another 10%. Fantastic. Into the left side for 18% max life plus. Because we're playing here the Pride glyph. 125 bonus to rare nodes. That boosts the 9%. Up to 18%, which is just insane. And then we deal another 13% multiplicative damage to healthy and injured enemies, as we boost that anyways with our Exploit glyph as well. We're going over into the right side for the Devious glyph, which grants you bonus a bonus to your magic nodes, and we're getting even more resistance to all elements like this. And when you hit an enemy with an attack that applies a crowd control effect, which we essentially do with all our lucky hits, then they take another 10% increased damage for 20 seconds. Which brings us into the Deadly Ambush board. You deal 23% increased critical strike damage to enemies affected by your trap skills. More critical strike damage, more victimized damage because your base damage is higher, and well, they get trapped and take more damage. Plus then the Exploit glyph for more vulnerable damage. Ta-da! And vulnerable damage scales up everything, and this makes enemies at least in the first 3 seconds vulnerable. It is not needed, but it's very good to have. Going into the Cheap Shot board, and here you get 13% damage reduction from elites. Doesn't hurt, just have it. Plus damage to crowd controlled enemies And you deal 20% increased damage to stunned or frozen enemies. Well, we do that continuously, right? More damage to crowd control, damage reduction from slowed, and we do slow them with our Caltrops plus our lucky hit. And lastly, we're going upwards into the cunning stratagem board to then get more armor and dex. That doesn't matter. But what we want is more damage to trapped enemies, and enemies affected by trap skills take 10% increased damage. And we continuously have the enemy Caltropped. Ladies and gentlemen, Heartseeker Rogue, the one build to destroy them all. If you now want to play this from level 1 on, there's the guide that actually explains this from 1 to 100 as well, and when to swap out skills. Or if I could rather interest you in a sorceress that is absolutely flying through the level, probably the best level experience I've ever had, check out both videos. They're fantastic. Enjoy, and don't forget to drop by the live streams that are happening daily apart from Saturday. Thank you.